And so we are on the record.
I'd like to welcome everyone here, members, staff, and guests. I'll start by reading our notice. Notice of the July 25th, 2019 meeting of the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors was posted to the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors website on July 17, 2019.
We are on the record.
I'd like to welcome everyone here.
Good morning. Yeah, that is you. This is Executive Director Roxana Gamusio. We've got two members participating. One is our board member, Jay Kaufman, and then one is an appearing before the board, Mr. Bill Thompson, participating electronically through the telephone system. If I could just ask that you both have us on mute until we need you or you need to ask any questions. That'll help us since we're streaming live. Thank you. Go right ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
I guess, Ms. Roxana, you want to call roll first?
Absolutely. That sounds great. Thank you. Mr. Tim Lingerfeld?
Present.
Mr. Jackie Dillahay?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Jed McKeehan?
Here.
Thank you. And Jay Kaufman participating telephonically?
Yes, ma'am. Present by telephone.
Thank you. We are all present, and we do have a quorum. Mr. Kaufman might not join us through the entire meeting, but we'll still be fine to continue.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I'd like to adopt the agenda as presented before us, and the chair would like to have some liberty with the agenda this morning, particularly with the legal issues, as Mr. Kaufman is teleconferencing in with us. So if the members don't have any problem with that, that's the way we'll handle things this morning.
Sounds good.
Okay, real good. I think now, Ms. Roxana, if you want, because of the teleconference communications, we can go to the legal report first.
That sounds fine. Perfect. The legal report, your iPad presentation is pretty long, so the legal report starts on page 118. I'll give our board members, if you push on the button in the middle or anywhere, it should give you the page numbers at the bottom. You'll need to skip all the way to 118 to get to the legal report. And then I will turn it over to Ms. Erica Smith to go ahead and guide you and answer any questions.
Thank you, Roxana. Would you like for me to read the summaries verbatim, or would you like me to paraphrase them for you?
Prefer you read them as written, please,
Okay.
ma'am.
So we're going to start with number 1. The case number is 2019-043-111. Complainant's parents hired respondent to survey 5 acres of land adjoining the parents' property, which they wanted to purchase from their neighbor in the fall of 2018. Respondent performed the survey and was paid $600. Complainant claims that her parents have tried for over 6 months to obtain the 2 paper plat copies allegedly promised by respondent, and respondent had emailed the digital plats to the complainant and the closing attorney after the survey was complete. And once this complaint was filed, respondent has since provided those paper plats to the complainant for her parents as requested, and I found no evidence of any violations. Therefore, my recommendation is dismissal.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion from the board?
No.
Move we accept the recommendation and dismiss.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the legal's recommendation to dismiss. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Number 2, the case number is 2019-053-111. The complainant hired the respondent to survey a property on March 31st, 2019, after the respondent had, quote, performed excellent work for the complainant's home property in 2006. The respondent was quick to perform the requested survey, but complainant claims they did not receive the promised sealed, stamped original version showing the survey results, which complainant needed to take to their county agency to register. Respondent provided an email with a sketch of the survey on May 24th, 2019. Complainant requests assistance from us, and that's why the complaint was filed. In obtaining this original survey from respondent and complainant confirmed that this matter was resolved immediately after this complaint was filed, and respondent has provided everything that complainant needed and requested. Therefore, my recommendation is dismissal.
One comment, it's sad that the complainant had to file a complaint in order to get the respondent to do what was professionally correct.
I wouldn't put it that way. I would say the complainant was frustrated with how long it was taking, and the respondent had actually been on vacation and explained that in his response. And based on the back and forth correspondence that I read between the respondent and the complainant, I just don't think it rises to the level of any kind of negligence or violation for sure.
I would like to take exception to that from the standpoint that I was not implying that.
Oh.
I was just making a simple statement as to what I heard. So, no, I was not making that implication.
Oh, okay.
If I had,
I apologize
If I
for
had,
that.
you would have had a different dissertation from me, I'll assure you.
Thank you.
Any
I
discussion from
understand.
the board?
Move we accept the recommendation to dismiss.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation of dismissal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Number 3 is a represent, which I've represented a couple times now. Would you like for me to read only the newest information, or how would you like for me to go about presenting it?
Well, I know that Mr. Dillahay was not present last meeting when we discussed this. And what I would prefer to do as the chair is simply to say that I would like to ask Mr. Dillahay if he is comfortable having read what was presented by legal and so forth, because I want to make sure that, you know, he's up to speed with this issue.
I have read it, and I'm okay with it.
Okay. And yes, ma'am, you can just read the final conclusions.
So number 3, the case number is 2015-021-5801. So at the request of this board at the last meeting, this complaint file was recently reviewed in its entirety by our chair, Tim Lingerfelt, and the complaint focuses on the allegations of collusion and deceit by the respondent and the owner of the adjoining property at issue. The new review by Mr. Lingerfelt, or by Commissioner Lingerfelt, indicated that there was no evidence that respondent engaged in collusion or deceit, but the review did find that the respondent's actions did contribute to making the issue at hand more complex. Additionally, the new review notes that the respondent appears not to have reviewed and related prior land descriptions, surveys, and historical records in his survey work for complainant's property and the adjoining property, and the lack of professional care perpetuated the situation with the complainant. The new review also notes that respondent exhibited a lack of general boundary surveying knowledge and meets a level of incompetence. Respondent did not meet the accepted standard of care for this industry and committed multiple violations as follows. The Rule 0820-04-.023, the proper conduct of practice. The respondent failed to respond to correspondence from the board initially when this complaint was originally filed, but has since responded. There's a violation of Rule 0820-04-.035 in service in areas of competence. The respondent failed to use the proper standard of care. A violation of Rule 0820-03-.064 and 7 for maps and mapping. The plat lacks statements about lines not actually surveyed concerning the river, and respondent did not show visible and apparent items in crossing property. Violation of Rule 0820-03-.071A and 1H4, survey types and requirements. The plats are not sealed by respondent, and there's no offset monument that was placed as a reference where the line entered the river. And finally, a violation of Rule 0820-04-.082 and 8 seals. A seal was not placed on the plats, and multiple plats were reviewed, and only one had a revision date. So my recommendation, after talking with Roxana, was to allow a discussion of this, and Chairman Lingerfelt, if you would like to make any statements considering your review, I think that would be really helpful. But that's up to you, and I would just open this for discussion.
Okay, two things. One, I will make a statement. Two, I will also make myself available to the other members should they have questions and would like to direct them to me from my review of the case. The statement that I would like to make is that although the complaint did not rise to the merit of the complaint, the documentation that was presented as a part of the complaint was information that was reviewed not only by myself but by other reviewers, and that information was found to be deficient in the rules, as you have just previously read. And it is my opinion, not the board's, but my opinion, that those findings, because of the information provided, are valid, and this board has justification to act on those findings because they were in violation.
May I ask a question in regard to that statement there?
Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, my question really is geared toward legal. And I had the same conclusion based on the information that was provided to me. My question to legal is, the original complaint that was filed had to deal strictly with whether the respondent engaged in collusion or deceit, and that was found to not be the case. However, some violations of the rules as listed were found in the review of the documentation. My question is this: on this complaint, can we only make decisions based on the complaint of collusion or deceit, or can we expand that into violation of the rules as a part of the original complaint?
That is an excellent question, Jay.
Oh, and I believe I've got an answer for you. We can absolutely take action on any violations that we find, even if they're not mentioned in the complaint. If we've got proof of it, then it's our duty to impose, proper discipline if we see violations, and that happens quite often.
Okay, and that was the answer I was hoping to hear. To expand on that a little bit, just as clarification, does the board, as the entity itself, have to file a separate complaint to go after these violations of the rules?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Erica?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Erica, I believe you when you say all that stuff. Do you have something you could say out loud that would be the reference or rule that we would say this allows us to do that? It's okay if you don't know it offhand, but...
No, I'm pretty sure in the statute, probably in the first section, it talks about the commission's role in enforcing the rules and regulations and statutes. So that I think that general explanation of the duty and the purpose allows for us to take action on any kind of violations that we find, whether it's brought up by a complainant or whether it's brought up by something that's found in an expert review. Because whether the complainant brought it up or not, the violation is still there. And for us to ignore it, I think would go against what our purpose is and what our duty is. But I've worked on many programs and with many boards, and we've done that many times. It's just how we operate. Roxana, do you have anything to add, or Stuart? Am I missing anything?
I don't have the statute that Jet won as a good attorney. I know what he's asking for, but we have done.
It's probably under, and you would have to tell me this, Erica, but it's probably under 62-18-106 as far as the board's authority and so forth.
I'm going to pull that up.
And not to make our jobs more difficult here today, but I mean, if I'm on the other side of this, I'm certainly going to argue you'll only have the ability, like Jay asked, to go after what the original complaint was, not to just, hey, let's open, just like a search warrant, let's just go in their house and see what we can find. Although all we're looking for is a gun, then we find drugs and we charge them with that. Rationally, it makes sense. I want to believe you, but if you could look up that statute and we could say it on the record at some point today, that'd make me feel better. Is that okay, Tim?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I will say, in the spirit that Erica is discussing, is that it is very common for us to have had complaints before the board relative to variety of issues where a case reviewer has reviewed, and there may have been standards of practice violations in that particular complaint. And upon review by the case reviewer has found additional standards of practice complaints, and we have, and this board has historically acted on those very things.
Sure.
And that's my understanding as well.
Can I make one more comment?
ma'am.
Another just thought that I had that might be helpful in answering this before I find the actual statute is if we think about the complainants that file these complaints, if they're a lay person, they wouldn't know what violations to look for anyways. So I think it's important to think about that. That's why we have the expert review it. Going to have more of a discussion or questions to.
I think we need that answer
Okay.
before we
Yeah.
can
Okay.
take any action.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are looking this up right now.
Jay,
Sorry.
this is Stewart. He's the new board attorney speaking now. I know you've not had the privilege of meeting, so I just want to let you know who was going to be talking.
Great, thank you.
And Stuart, I should have introduced him more officially. Stuart Huffman is taking on our role right now and guiding us, which is wonderful. He's going to NCEES with us as well so that he can learn the program in depth. So Ashley's obviously not here.
I apologize, Stuart. I interrupted you. You had something that you were going to tell us, I think.
We're just trying to find the statute. So
Okay.
I would say if it's silent, if it doesn't specifically allow it, then you're allowed to do whatever you want. And you can get in there and fish around and charge them with whatever, violations of whatever, if it doesn't say you can't. But certainly right for Tim or Jay to get their name on a piece of legislation and correct that.
I would add that while legal is looking at this, if as the board you want to continue the conversation of what exactly would be the recommendation to close the case and to move on, you got it? Okay, go ahead, Eric.
If I could jump in real quick with another question, you might can answer this quickly. Do we know the current status of the license of the respondent?
Question. Who would know the answer to that?
I don't know who the respondent is, so I can't look it up on the website.
I'm looking it up right now for you.
Thank you.
What is that?
Jay, where are you?
So,
Oh, he's at home.
yeah, he can't join us today. He's good.
Nice pajamas.
I thought he was at the beach or something.
He says in
No.
pajamas.
His license does not expire until December 31st, 2019, so he's on the same renewal cycle as everyone else. He's active.
And it is a full
Currently
license, not a retired license.
Oh, correct, yes.
Because
Excellent.
in the documentation, it says that he's retired.
And it could be from practice itself, but his
Right.
license is listed as
Right.
active.
Okay.
Okay.
I just verified that in our system too.
Okay. Can I jump in here?
Go right ahead, Jay.
Okay. Just kind of in review from our last meeting. Of course, we had the initial reviewer's opinion, which was very strong. In fact, used the word incompetence, and then almost on a 180 to some extent. Reviewer number 2 certainly did not use words to that effect. However, in review number 2, which I think is glaring in his review, he stated, the reviewer stated that the expert could not render an opinion on this decision. So basically we have a hands were thrown up in the air is the way I look at it in terms of reviewer number 2. But the one point that I did stand out in reviewer number 2 was that it appears, if I understand the review correctly here, that they did have a conversation with the respondent, or at least some contact with the respondent to explain his survey. And in fact, it says here the complainant seemed to have several good points to his argument. The respondent provided explanations in his response that were believable. to the new experts. So that gives some credibility to the respondent that they are replying back to the questions and that there was some explanation to the way that they conducted their survey. So I do give the respondent some credit there. And here is a question I do have for admin. There's some confusion here as to whether the respondent replied. I know the reviewer number 1 said that there was no contact with the respondent. In fact, item number 5 under incompetence, no response about the complaint provided by the surveyor. It sounds as though the original surveyor never replied to the original complaint, and yet when the second reviewer came in, there was something in there about they immediately replied. And I think I even read later on that there was indication that the surveyor was never even notified of the original complaint. So here's my question, getting down to the point of responding to the complaint. Do we know that the original surveyor was notified of the complaint and had the opportunity to reply? Do we know that they were contacted, notified of the complaint, and did they have an opportunity to reply?
So this is Erica from legal again. This case was transferred to me, and as soon as I got the case, that was prior to the second expert reviewer reviewing it. I did not see anything in our file that showed that the respondent was asked to reply. So as soon as I got it, I reached out to the respondent, and that is when he immediately responded, and when I got the response to the complaint, and that was sent to the second expert reviewer. And so I can't say for sure that the respondent did or did not have an opportunity to reply before I got the file, because I just don't see anything. But that doesn't mean that a letter wasn't sent out. But as soon as I reached out, as soon as I had my hands on the case, the respondent was cooperative and immediately replied. And that's what the second expert reviewer is referring to in his review, because the first expert reviewer had only one side of the story. And then, does that help?
That does help. And the reason I asked that was that, the list of violations provided by the third reviewer, the very first one about respondent failed to respond to correspondence from the board, which agrees with the first reviewer.
Jay, what page are you looking at? 121?
I'm sorry, I'm on page 505 of the legal report.
This has the legal report on your iPad.
Be the last page.
That's the last page, yes. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I guess just by going through these individually, I wanted to know that the respondent failed to reply knowing that they had the opportunity, but that does not seem to be the case based on what I'm reading. Am I correct there? We can't prove that they received like a registered mail or something to that.
Correct. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to prove it. I felt it was necessary to put in my summary just because it was part of the chairman's review.
I agree. Thank you. Okay. So I wanted to get that one to the side. Other than that, I find a lot of similarities between the first and third reviewers. The second reviewer, again, just restating my point before, the issue I have with the second reviewer is that they stated that they could not render an opinion on this alone. And that stands out to me almost as strong as the first reviewer who used the word incompetence, as well as the third reviewer. The fact that we've got two reviewers with a lot of similarities stands out to me being very strong. And the fact that even though perhaps the original charges of collusion and deceit don't seem to be at hand here, the reviewer, the third reviewer, does find fault with several of the rules in review of the surveys that were provided as part of the evidence. And again, going through those 5 rules that seem to be a violation, again, I'm on page 505 of the legal report, I tend to agree with items 2 through 5 of the proposed rule violations. However, the first one I just don't feel strong about, only because I don't know that we have enough to support it. But with that being said, based on the information that's provided from all 3 reviewers, I do tend to strongly feel that the listed rule violations 2 through 5 do apply in this case. And I would like to hear from the other board members here about, A, do they agree with that? And then B, would they feel strongly about pursuing either a civil penalty or perhaps, as I might suggest here, in lieu of a civil penalty, because of the age of the surveyor and the fact that they have stated that they're retired from practice, what I may suggest in lieu of a civil penalty is to request the surveyor to voluntarily give up their license with the understanding that it's not to be renewed and that he's not to practice any further.
Saying give up his license or retire his license?
I do not want the ability for him to regain licensure is my point. And with that, I'll throw it to the other board members.
I have found the statute, if you want me to bring
Please.
that. I don't, okay. So Tennessee Code Annotated 62-18-116, and that has to do with our disciplinary actions and proceedings. A1 states the board may refuse to issue a certificate of registration, may revoke, suspend, or refuse to renew a certificate of registration, or may take other lawful disciplinary action against any land surveyor registered under this chapter for any of the following causes. And we've got a list of 5 or 6 here. And the ones that I think apply here would be for any incompetency, misconduct, or gross negligence in the practice of land surveying, any violation of this chapter or of any rules adopted under this chapter, any failure to comply with the minimum acceptable standards of practice established pursuant to 62-18-106C. I feel like all of those could apply, and that statute clearly states that we can take action, or the board can take action for those types of violations.
And just as a note, we also, almost verbatim to what she just read there, we're allowed to give civil penalties for each of those.
And let me say something about that. And also in rules 0820-01-.06 in the civil penalties, with respect to any person required to be registered by the board as a land surveyor, the board may, in addition to or in lieu of any other lawful disciplinary action, assess a civil penalty against such person. So yes, you can assess a civil penalty instead.
Yeah, that's the rule I was referring to as well.
I guess my question, though, is, as Jay stated originally, the original complaint was for collusion. We found these other violations. Can we act on those violations under this complaint number, or do we need to file a new complaint and open it to address those specifically, and to give the gentleman a chance, or person, I don't know if it's a man or woman, a chance to respond to the violations that we have found?
I hadn't thought about that, because the respondent is not aware of any of these new findings, so definitely has not had a chance to respond to them. So that would be up to the board, if the board wants to give the respondent a chance to reply to these. I'm not sure if it would make a difference, though, because I think the violations are clearly still there.
Oh, right, I understand.
That would bring a question to mind was, okay, let's assume for discussion purposes that the respondent was not notified after the original complaint was made, okay, and we have some evidence that may have been the case. Well, when you notified the respondent, did you make any effort or include any of these violations that had been determined by the first reviewer? To the respondent, I'm just looking for any kind of. I understand what you said, and I'm just looking to see if there was any type of notice.
Right. No. There's the only request that I made was a general request that he respond to the complaint that was filed, so that the respondent wouldn't be aware in any way, shape, or form of these violations.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is in the spirit of fairness and legality, I guess, it would seem to me that the new direction may be a formal hearing.
I mean, I think that would work everything out,
Can I say something?
one way or
again?
another.
Yes, sir.
So during the course of an investigation, if new items come up or new violations come up, that's not when the respondent doesn't have to respond. It's the formal hearing is when the respondent can now say, I don't believe I violated any rules or statutes. So you have the ability to issue a civil penalty or revocation or whatever you decide to do without having the respondent notified of these new violations.
So, because we haven't been down this road yet while I've been on the board, which hasn't been that long, so procedurally, we punish him somehow and then he requests a formal hearing, or the board requests a formal hearing?
So to answer that question, if the board today was to vote on issuing discipline, maybe in the form of civil penalties, the next step would be that I would send a consent order, which is kind of a settlement offer, to the respondent, and that would list these violations in detail, and that gives the respondent an opportunity to either say, yes, I did commit these, I'm going to accept this consent order, I'm going to pay these fines or whatever the discipline is, and if he feels that he did not, then he would request a formal hearing. So that he's got those two options. So he would be notified at some point. And then, if he presented some new information, I'd have to bring that to you, but that would change anything. But otherwise,
Okay. And I would say this, certainly there are plenty of attorneys in the room, and I am not here today in my attorney. But that makes me feel better about it, and I didn't mean to open up this Pandora's box of issues by raising that question. But as I read the statute 6218.115 in conjunction with 6218.116 subparagraph 3, I think we can probably do whatever we want to. And if we're saying, hey, you get a chance for a formal hearing, here's what we found, even if it is a blindside, which it will be, he has the opportunity to contest that. I don't love it. Is it completely 100% the best way to do it? Probably not. But I think we're okay to do it given the path that it would potentially take. Is it better? I mean, is it 100% accurate to resend him notice of these other violations and have him respond? Probably. But I mean, this thing's been going on forever. It's time to put it to bed.
and the survey, was in 1999.
Yeah,
so
that's
20
insane.
years ago.
And we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Survey was at that.
Yes.
I missed that.
Yes, that's
So
just,
does it
that's
fall
a
under
very old,
Illusion.
to have a formal hearing about that is, it's going to be challenging, but
Let me ask this question. Since the discussion has somewhat gravitated towards a civil penalty, and we've run across this before in our civil penalty rule, it refers to statutes, yet we refer to rules, and we always have the problem of cross-referencing those in order to know. For example, there's five of them on here, and what I would like to know is what is the penalty range for each one of the five? Because the members, not myself, but the members are going to have to decide if that's their pleasure to go civil penalty, what that civil penalty could be. In other words, it's going to be between something and something if there's one issued.
And I'm always terrible at this, but what order we should do. But do we all agree that it should be 2 through 5 and not 1, or do we think he should be penalized for a violation of rule, the first one as well?
Okay, I think at this point, let me ask the members this question because number one, I don't vote, and number two, I have reviewed and I have additional information that you all would not necessarily have. So, but I think I can still conduct if I do it properly. I think at this point, Jed, you bring a very valuable question. I think the members need to formulate a motion, and that motion needs to be voted on. And once it's voted on, then we'll have further discussion, such as what a civil penalty could be for item A, B, or C, or whatever it may be, whatever they may be. So yes, I think your question is in the right spirit, Jed. So I'm going to turn it back to the members, you too, Jay, so that you all can decide whatever motion you all want to craft, and then we'll try to move forward with that.
All right, go ahead, Jay.
Okay. I agree with the way Tim put that, and I will forward a motion for discussion of the listed violations as listed by reviewer number 3. Of the violations that are listed, there are 5 in total. I would suggest that we remove the violation number 1, which is listed as respondent failed to respond to correspondence from the board, and only address items 2 through 5.
I'd second that.
I agree also.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. Okay, now we can have discussion, and I assume one part of the discussion is going to be are those items evaluated, Miss Erica?
The penalty, there's 16A.
I think I have that information here if you'd like me to list it through, and I think Ms. Erica could probably...
And Jay, if you've reviewed it and have a motion, I mean, you can go straight to the motion if you've had a chance to look at all 4.
Are you looking at Rule 0820-01-.06 for the civil penalties?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if you have a motion or a suggestion, I welcome it.
Well, it's still in discussion.
Right.
I'd like to address, in that list of potential civil penalties that we're allowed to assess, items C, which deal with incompetency, item D, which deals with violation of rules, and item E, which deals with minimum standards, item F, which deals with the stamping and sealing of survey plats. I think those address the 4 listed rules violations here. And those civil penalties range anywhere from $50 to $1,000 on each occurrence, and I believe it's on a daily basis, I believe. So there is potential here for multiple civil penalties and potentially for multiple days. And that's certainly open for discussion here with the board members. So just to expand on that a little bit, the suggested rule violation number 2, which deals with the service in areas of competence, respondent failed to use the proper standard of care. I would correlate that to item C of the potential civil penalty incompetence, which has a, let me get this here,
$250 to $1,000.
$250 to $1,000 in penalties. I would suggest, just in my opinion here, I would suggest that since reviewer 1 and reviewer 3 strongly suggested incompetence in their surveying abilities, that we leverage the strongest civil penalty possible here.
Got a motion?
Let's do them all
Okay.
at one, Jed, if that's all right.
So your suggestion is $1,000 for that?
That is the strongest civil penalty we're listed to allow under that violation. Moving forward, not hearing any further discussion, moving forward to the third rule violation listed, the plat lacks a statement about lines not actually being surveyed. Respondent did not show visible apparent items in crossing the property. I take that as a minimum standards violation, which allows civil penalties ranging between $50 and $1,000. Again, it sounds like there are multiple minimum standards violations, but if we could correlate them into just one with a maximum penalty of $1,000 would be my suggestion.
Okay.
All right, hearing no further discussion, moving on to suggested rule violation number 4, the survey types and requirements of plats are not sealed by the respondent. Again, that correlates to item F of civil penalties, with civil penalties ranging between $500 and $1,000. It sounds to me as if there were multiple plats here that did not contain the stamps. I would suggest the one maximum civil penalty of $1,000.
About number 5.
And it correlates with 5 too. I think 4 and 5 are somewhat similar.
Well, having said that, Jay, would you like to formulate a motion with the civil penalty information and so forth, and any other thing that you feel is appropriate in your motion for the members?
Well, thank you, Tim. Before I do that, though, I would like to expand a little bit on the discussion, a point that I made earlier in that a suggestion, and I definitely am open to the board's opinion on this, other members of the board's opinion on this. The surveyor is in excess of 75 years old, as I understand it, obviously has some health problems. As best I understand it, is retired from practice, however, does currently hold an active license. I'm going to just take with the assumption that all the above is true. He currently is retired and not practicing, just because that's the only information I have available to me. With that being said, you know, what I've suggested here is several $1,000s of civil penalties. And at that age, being retired, you would have to assume that he's, you know, limited in terms of income at that age, obviously has some health care issues. I don't know that a civil penalty really addresses the point here. In what I may suggest to the board in lieu of a quite substantial civil penalty here, if the surveyor would voluntarily give up their license in exchange for not filing civil penalties here. And I don't know the legalities behind all this, but quite honestly, the way I look at it is perhaps the gentleman or lady does not need to be surveying anymore based on healthcare issues, obviously in a retired state in terms of his profession. And then obviously there's some lacking of competence and skill and ability here. And I think perhaps that to best serve the public from this point forward in terms of the protection of the public, which is paramount here, that by removing the license from the surveyor prohibits him from performing any future surveys, which I think is the case already, being that he's retired. I would make the assumption that he's not going to be performing surveys anymore. But I think by removing the license from the surveyor, that formally takes that action of the ability to perform legally surveys in the future, which I think protects the public as best, more so than taking thousands of dollars out of his pocket, which, you know, potentially could go towards either his standard of living in retirement or his health care, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to throw that out for discussion on the board.
My question would be, do we have the option to offer
Options?
either or?
Yes, we absolutely do. We've done that. I think that's a great
where I would
suggestion.
lean, is to offer either or. Here's your civil penalty,
Yes.
but in lieu, if you so choose, you can
Voluntary
voluntarily
surrender.
retire your license.
Right.
And then if he doesn't consent to
And
the
then he still
consent
has-
order, then we can
Right.
do a formal.
Right, so he's
and-
really got the three options
Yeah.
there. He has the right to make his argument in a formal hearing.
Yes, that is my suggestion, is an either or, just to clarify.
You guys live in this world, but this stuff sounds pretty bad. The mistakes he's made. I don't know that retirement or cancer, those facts are irrelevant to our decision, honestly. They shouldn't be a factor. $4,000, I would gladly pay that to keep doing what I'm doing, whether I'm retired or not, if I was up against it. I just don't know if that's enough money, in my opinion. Maybe it is, but, Jay's talking about retire, end his career permanently, or charge him $4,000, which isn't that much money.
Well, let me say something about our civil penalties. Our civil penalties, in my mind, are small. Obviously, when you add them up, they can become large. And until you use a multiplier of a per day occurrence, they don't become very big. So, unfortunately, I think that our hands are somewhat tied as to what our civil penalties can be. We have a range per violation, and we have to fall within that range. And please, Miss Erica, correct me if I say this wrong. So, yes, I do agree with what you're saying, Jed, but unfortunately, we're sort of limited in somewhere where we're at.
Well, the question I'd have on that, if it stipulates that the violation occurs every day, does that not give us the option to increase
Oh, absolutely.
the fines?
Each day of a continued
And if it
violation.
does, but so and I'm just throwing out numbers here. If he's been in violation 100 days, that could be $100,000. But we think that's too much, and we say it should be $10,000. Are we still able to do that?
I mean, yes, the statute clearly
yeah,
says that each day of a continued violation shall constitute a separate violation, but we either have to come up with an explanation of the math of, how many days are we going to count and which days and
Right.
what how it relates to the fact pattern. But you do have that option.
Well, let me ask this. I mean, do you guys feel like it's either retire or $4,000's enough?
Well, Jed, to expand a little bit on that, I agree with the premise that we can charge a separate violation per day on each violation. Of these four that we're discussing here, I don't see where any of those could be multiplied on a per day basis, because once they're done, they're done. As opposed to the failure to respond, that is a daily violation, but we're not discussing that one. Where I do see the potential to add additional civil penalties is that each plat that was not stamped is in itself a separate violation, and that there are multiple plats involved here. I'm not aware of an exact number. Obviously, we could get that number. I just don't have it. It's not provided. So we do have the potential here for multiple civil penalties based on the number of plats that were provided and are in violation themselves, each being a separate and sole violation.
I don't know if this is the appropriate way to handle this, but what number would make us feel good about charging this guy to let him keep doing surveys? Put a number. Is there a number?
For me, that number is how many plats do we have and how many violations did he incur? That's my number. Multiplied by the maximum civil penalty we can assess.
I would agree with that.
What was it,
I would
three?
be
Was it
good with-
3 plats?
I don't know. Was it? Do we know how many plats?
I would have to look into the file with a fine-tooth comb, but I could probably figure it out. It would probably take me a little while. I'm happy to do it. Unless
No.
Chairman Lingerfeld.
No, Chairman's not going to answer. No.
So if the board would like to proceed with everything else, and that number is what we want to multiply for the civil penalty, again, the offer to surrender the license can be part of the consent order, then we could move on and just fill in that number, if that's...
Yeah, if I can take the liberty, I would like to put that in the form of the motion. And so I'll make that motion to offer the respondent a consent order of either voluntarily foregoing his license on a permanent basis or present a civil penalty in the amount of the total violations multiplied by the maximum civil penalty allowed based on the number of plats that are found in violation, which is not available to me currently right now.
Okay.
Stuart just brought this to my attention. Let's see, in the first summary, the first presentation, it's in italics. at the very bottom where it says seals, it does say that there's 3 surveys provided by the complainant that did not bear the seal. And there were 3 surveys that had a different, or they have the same date without a revision note. So I'm thinking the number is 3.
Jay, for you, that's on page 3 of 5 of the legal report.
Thank you. I got it. Okay. So with that, that would be 3 separate violations of the 5th rule that was listed of violations. So that could be a civil penalty of $3,000 in addition to $1,000 for rule violation 2, 3, and 4. So at the moment, I'm seeing about a proposed civil penalty of $6,000. Does that math sound right?
I'll second your motion, Jay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now just as a clarification, Jay, from the chair, your motion was to offer a civil penalty of $6,000 or a volunteer surrender, permanent surrender of the license, or his third option, which legal will offer, would be a formal hearing.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that we're all clear on exactly what the motion was and what we have said, or the members have said.
That's a correct restatement of my motion.
I'm in favor of that recommendation as well.
Okay. I think that concludes the legal report. Go ahead, Ms.
They all
Roxanne.
voted. I just want to make sure, Eric asked me, everybody voted in agreement, correct?
Yes.
The chair did not vote.
Correct. The chair did not. So yes, that is the legal report.
Okay. And I would like to thank everyone involved in that. That was a very complex and difficult matter to deal with.
All
Thank
of
you
your
very
work.
much, Miss Erica.
I have a question just out of curiosity. When you said you reached out to these people, did you just call them?
Yes, I did call this respondent.
Okay.
I
I
talked
was
to the
just
respondent.
curious. Okay.
Okay, but typically you write a letter and they have 30 days to respond or
Correct.
something of that nature.
Like like clock, or it's part of our procedure, our
Right.
standard procedure. Complaint filed,
Okay.
copy goes to the respondent. But like this, I think was 2015. So I can't be sure what happened or what didn't happen.
Okay, Jay, if you wouldn't mind to stay with us for just a couple of more moments. Again, we're bouncing around a little bit with the agenda here. I think it would be prudent for us to approve the minutes next, which won't take but just a minute. If we have a motion for that, unless there's any corrections.
Motion to
Motion to
approve.
approve.
Okay. We have a motion. Jay, you seconding?
Yes, sir. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from last meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And the last topic, and Jay, you're welcome to stay with us all day, and I appreciate you doing it, but the last topic is election of officers, and I'll go to the members for that. We need to elect a chair and a vice chair.
I'll make a motion to elect Tim Lingerfield as chairman and Jackie Delahaye as vice chairman.
Second.
I heard the train coming, Jackie. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Miss Roxanne, I'm going to kind of go from your direction at this point.
Perfect. Thank you. And Jay, if you need to leave us, we understand. I can't thank you enough for participating. We're going to move on to our appearing before the board.
Okay. I think the board members that are present can certainly handle it from there. And if there is anything you need from me, don't hesitate to call me. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and hang up and get back to some business here.
Thank you. Thank you
And
so much.
Jay, I might say we have a continuing education matter that's coming up right now, if you do want to hang for another minute or two.
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
And go ahead, Miss Roxanne.
Okay, so again, given that on the appearing before the board, we know for a fact that Mr. Thompson's participating with us electronically through the phone. I think we will go ahead and skip to that particular piece. And I apologize, Jay, you don't have this, I don't think, electronically. I'm trying to think back if I would have emailed it, but you may. So we're going to skip to page 10 on our iPads. This is the presentation that we have requested by Mr. Thompson. We have a lot of documents, and it's basically we've gone back to the full presentation from the first time it was presented at the board for review, and this is for continuing education, so Jamie has made sure that we have everything. Mr. Thompson, thank you again for participating. I knew you weren't able to come in person, so we made this offer, and I will go ahead, and you're welcome to take us off mute if you want to address the board or answer any questions, or if they've got questions of you. I'll let you continue.
Yes, can you hear me?
We hear you perfectly.
Okay. Some of my seminars were, the hours were cut or they were denied completely, and I'm dissatisfied with that. If you've read a letter that I wrote to Jay Kaufman, probably on March 13th of this year, it explains my issues and the ones that were cut and my concerns.
Mr. Thompson, this is Roxanne again, I apologize. Let me interrupt you for a second to bring the board members to what you're talking about. The letter specifically being addressed is on page 11, 12, and 13 that you have before you. I know we prepared to look at this at our last meeting, but Mr. Thompson wasn't available in person or telephonically. And then I did print a letter that was emailed to me today from one of our, I believe, reviewers. You have it in paper in front of you. If he should point to that, that's what you have in paper, because I did not receive it until today. So if the members have reviewed the letter and have any changes or questions, I'll let you take over.
Just real quick, Roxana, for information purposes, I don't have that information in front of me for opinion, but just to let you know.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson, this is Tim Lingerfeld, the chair. I think that what we want to reiterate, or at least from my standpoint, the members can reiterate their own, is that the courses that we denied, we felt like either they were not of a professional level that we look for, or some other reason. The courses that we carved the hours on were courses, and I'll give an example. One example may be vertical curves. You had asked for 4 PDHs for our vertical curves course. Although professionals use vertical curves, primarily it's an elementary course more at the beginning of a professional's career. Obviously, they can certainly be enhanced through seminars that addresses that, but 4 hours on vertical curves, I personally cannot justify. I realize that the math is sometimes complex, but at the same token, the presentation to get 4 hours for that, I personally couldn't justify. And there's other courses, and I won't speak to each one of them individually, but primarily those are some of the reasons. Is that the ultimate goal and purpose of continuing education for a licensee is that it enhances and improves the professional's day-to-day practice and their ability to be a professional in the public and for the benefit of the public, because that's what we're all here to do. And that's why that I question some of these courses and some of these hours. Because, I attend courses. I'm licensed in multiple states, so I attend courses in lots and lots of places, and I see a variety of things. But as far as this board is concerned, the procedures that we currently use for approved courses, of how they're reviewed, presented to the board, and how we respond, I am very comfortable with that.
My opinion is if you read on below that is what I would accept. And if you read on, I would accept the 2 PDHRs on the spiral curves and the vertical curves, but I'm asking for the 4 PDHRs on the horizontal curves. Now, horizontal curves is something that a boundary survey uses every day. And I know that there are several surveyors that could use a little more help on that situation, especially the older surveyors. Hopefully the younger surveyors do know how to do a horizontal curve and not all the computations that's involved.
If I could make just a brief comment there, I would disagree with that statement. I would certainly hope that the older surveyors have mastered the concept of horizontal and vertical and spiral curves by now, and that the younger surveyors, perhaps being young in their practice, are still applying it to the profession of surveying.
I would disagree. I know several surveyors, and I'm not going to call any names, that don't know how to do a simple horizontal curve. It's obvious by reviewing some of their work. Maybe if they know how, they don't do it to my satisfaction anyway.
Hey, Mr. Thompson, do you have any other information that may be prudent for the members to hear so that they can review and potentially make any changes in their prior decisions?
There was another letter by Mike Stump, and he went through and said that my recommendations, or what I would accept, is not out of line. If you've got that in front of you, I think that Roxanne just sent that to him this morning, or said it's a paper copy or something to that effect.
Yes, sir, Mr. Thompson. I have that letter in front of me, and I personally know Mr. Stump, and I have read the letter. Thank you for presenting that.
But just, if you accept what, if y'all will accept what I would accept, then I'm satisfied.
Can I jump in there real quick, Tim?
Go right ahead, Jay.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me. Mr. Thompson, first of all, I admire your profession, your passion for the profession. I admire that you want to share your knowledge with the younger surveyors. I admire the variety of courses that you're offering and the opportunity for fellow professionals like yourself and myself to gain that education. But the way I look at it is this. It's a professional development hour, and I use that word professional. I want to highlight that point, in that these courses are offered to those who have already proven that they have knowledge and skill in surveying. And as an example, one of those is vertical curves, horizontal curves. We've all been through years of experience, the education requirements. We've been through multiple testing. By this point, I hope that we've proven to the general public, to their satisfaction, that they are protected by our stamp to understand that we have the required knowledge to provide those services that include these courses or subjects of these courses. I'm not trying to trivialize the content of the courses that you're offering by any means. There is value here to those courses. However, I don't know that the professional, with a capital P, professional, is at that level in terms of what these courses are designed for. And with that in mind, I'm going to stand my ground here on the suggestions of ours that we've made and previous suggestions here. I appreciate you coming back in front of the board. I admire your persistence. It does mean something to me. It really does. Your passion is visible. We see it. But quite honestly, I think some of your other courses are more valuable to the professional than these specifics here. Not to discredit them at all, but I just want to say that perhaps if you're aiming to provide more professional development hours, that the topics need to be of a more professional level as opposed to the journeyman or LSIT level where they're just advancing into the profession. I hope I said that correctly.
Well, I'll disagree. Let's take
Okay, well, we'll agree to disagree with that then.
the GPS, for instance. That's, well, it's relatively new. It's new to me 10 years ago. It's not something that you can go out there and it's not like, changing from a Chevrolet to a Toyota. I mean, you've got to, there's some learning experience there. I remember when I first got started, it was probably a couple of weeks before I could feel confident about going out and doing a survey with it. And I tell this story on Mike Stump. Y'all know him all.
Well, Mr. Thompson, I think we're somewhat deviating, and what I'm hearing from the members is that unless anyone else wants to speak up, is that we're basically going to stay pat with the decision that we've made at this time.
Well, this is Jackie Delahaye, Mr. Thompson. I agree with what Jay had just mentioned. While all of these courses are good for the surveyor, it's the amount of PDHs that was and is a concern to us. And even with the way we have it now, with what you've presented, there's 26 hours that a surveyor could get from you alone, and that gets him within 4 hours of his required 30 for a 2-year period. Again, I commend your effort and time. It's just that I don't agree with the requested PDH hours, and am in line with what we have accepted.
Yeah, and I concur with the chairman and Jackie as well on that. I stand pat.
I think we're in good shape. Unless there's anything else, we'll move on to our second appearing before the board. Thank you for participating, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Johnny Kerr, are you available? Okay, thank you. So we will, I'm going to give you all the page number just so you can switch it. This presentation starts on page 35 on your iPads. Jay, thank you very much. I know that you don't have this one either in front of you, so if you're leaving us, we understand.
I'll leave that up to the chairman. If he'd like me to stay, I will. Otherwise, I'll get back to matters at hand here.
I believe we can handle Mr. Kerr. He's a pretty nice feller.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jay.
I'll let y'all go.
Look forward to seeing you in Washington.
Yes, sir. We'll be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
That this red button comes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please state your name and address, Mr. Kerr.
My name is Johnny Kerr, and my address is 4519 Winslow Drive, Strawberry Plains, Tennessee.
Thank you.
It's been 32 years. Try my best not to stumble. I had what I do. Have done this for 10 years. I provide continuing education. Also, I'm a full-time surveyor there in East Tennessee, and I've presented 5 courses. I try to do new courses every year, classroom style. 5 courses that I've submitted to the board. I think 2 of them were approved, and 2 of them, I think there was some discussion on them. I want to thank you for your time to listen to me, because I know you're busy. I can see that. But if there's anything, I would be happy to answer the questions on the seminar presentations that I have, or be open to suggestions to improve them. Either way. As a matter of fact, one of the courses I've done for 4 years, I was just resubmitting that, and it was denied. It was practice. What I changed on that was to make sure we had the current standards of practice, and the ethics part of it's changed a little bit, but the format's pretty much the same. And it's requested for 2 hours. 2015.
Have a list of, we don't have a list in our stuff of his courses just as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and approved or denied. Okay.
If I find it, I'll give you that page number.
I'm sorry, I don't have the old number
may I have that
in front of me for that.
Same thing. Okay.
No, I mean,
Okay.
it's all the education.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, it's all one. I got you. I got you.
For approval today.
Okay.
It's a lot of material to cover in 2 hours, but I highlight the pertinent to the surveyor. I mean, all of it is, of course, but things that are important to the surveyor. Of course, they have a full copy of the standards of practice for Tennessee.
I don't recall, I'll be very candid, I don't recall our comments. I don't have my minutes or my notes from the last meeting. I don't recall our comments on denying the ethics and standards. This last meeting that we did these, Jamie?
I don't think.
Oh, this is just for this one? Okay.
When did we deny these? Because I don't recall
Was
going
this-
over these last time. Oh, by email? Oh, well, wait a second.
Yeah, so you haven't seen these yet.
Right. You would not have
You've
seen
not
it.
seen them.
So we've
Okay.
got 3 members that participate and help us with the courses. They review everything, and then 1 board member has to approve. But if they do not, then we have to bring it to the meeting.
But what, I guess, help us here a little bit, Jamie. A little unprepared for this one, and I apologize, Mr. Kerr.
That's okay, sir.
We're certainly going to address it adequately for you, I hope. What I'm saying is, what is the tally, I guess, of the members, so that that we know basically what we've told you. I don't want to tell you something 100%, 180 degrees.
Let me go pull that up.
Okay. I apologize for the inconvenience, Mr. Kerr. I want to get this right.
Should we take a break while she's doing
Yeah.
that?
Will that take you just a minute, Jamie? If it will, we'll take a little break. Yeah. Let's, Miss Roxanne, if we may, we'll take a 10-minute
Oh, yeah.
break while
That
Jamie
sounds good.
finds that.
It's 10:15. We'll
I
come
want
back
to make
in 10
sure we
minutes.
do this right for you.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been waiting too, Jackie.
Hey, this is Bill Thompson. Hello, this is Bill.
Okay, it's now 10:23, and we're back on record. Thank you for the break. With Mr. Kerr's permission, we're going to move ahead while we wait on Miss Jamie to come up with the data that we've requested. So I guess the next thing would be, well, we don't want to deal with the education report yet, do we?
If we could come back up, I believe TAP's representative is here. Okay, here we go.
Okay,
Up front.
Mario,
Mr.
do
Mario,
you have
yes,
anything
if
to
that's
say to the
okay.
board?
Way to be put on the spot, but
Okay.
yes, we're going to skip for a minute to move on with business, so I will
Okay.
turn it over to you. Mario Forte is appearing on behalf of TAPS. If you have any
Okay.
questions, and to update us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Mario Forte. I'm the Vice President and Conference Chair for the Tennessee Association of Professional Surveyors. Appreciate you taking the time to hear me out today. So, as the majority of the board members know, I'm responsible for our annual conference every year. And as a result of that, for the last 10 years or so, we have gone to a certificate of attendance for PDH requirements and a one-page certificate where we list all of the continuing education, and people just check off the boxes that they attended. So we have determined that several members are not ethically filling out the forms correctly. They're filling them out incorrectly, and we're trying to address that, and we're on top of that. But what we would like to know from the board is if there are ethical violations. That we see that there's two violations going on here. There's either they're ethically filling out the form incorrectly, or they're knowingly filling out the form incorrectly, reporting the wrong hours that they didn't attend. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So when you get the form, there's 15 or 17 PDHs offered on the entire form, but they may have only paid for 1 day of the attendance. But when they turn it in, there's 15 hours filled in. So they may have actually sat in those courses, but they only paid TAPS for 1 day of attending the conference. Now, that's a TAPS issue, I understand that, but ethically, we see that as an ethical compromise.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Before we get too far on that. The form you're referring to, and I can visualize it, I think, in my mind, but keep in mind that when they renew this year, they will not turn in a form.
Right, that's
We don't
correct.
want it.
That's correct.
They're going to attest that they took
Right.
30 hours.
Right.
So if they made a mathematical mistake,
Right.
said they took something they didn't pay,
Right.
fudged their numbers, when we will deal with it is when they are audited, if and when. And at that point, your certificate, hopefully, to them is only for the 4 hours they paid and took.
Right.
That's where the
Right.
discrepancy will come in.
Right, and I'm not. Right, I'm not actually. I'm not even getting into that point further down the line. What I'm trying to get at is, we want to educate our surveyors to correctly fill out the forms. But in order to do that, we need to know what the penalties are if they were to come here and present, if they were audited and presented forms. What are the penalties that could possibly happen to a surveyor if they were? What we would like to do as TAPS is notify them that we found a discrepancy in either what they've reported or what they're reporting based on what they paid for and attended, and what they will eventually hold in their files, which could be audited. So we would like to be able to know what under penalty they would be facing if they were falsely reporting hours that they didn't attend. And then the other question would be is if TAPS's position is that if we find a discrepancy, we will at first notify the person in question and try and resolve it that way. And if the person doesn't resolve it, we may turn in what we are considering an ethics violation, that they are either not reporting correctly, that it will be on file. We will make a complaint that we have tried to solve this, but this may happen. So what we're kind of looking for the board to tell us, or to keep us apprised that we can notify all the surveyors that are in attendance, is that what is the penalty if they don't do it correctly. And that actually will be part of what our ethics course will include, is filling out the forms correctly.
If I may, I think it's a sort of broad general answer for this, and my answer would be anywhere from requiring the applicant to obtain hours up to revocation. Anywhere between. I know that I realize that's a complete broad spectrum, but it depends on the issue at hand upon the audit. Is that fair, Ms. Roxanne?
Absolutely.
Right.
And remember that in the audit, we're not going to count on the log or
Right.
we need to see the certificate that says your name, when you attended, and what you attended, so we know your in timeline is over.
Right.
So the log's not going to matter.
And here's where the person may have actually attended all the courses they're reporting, but they didn't pay for all the courses they're attending. And that's a TAPS issue, and we recognize that's a TAPS issue. But we feel that it's also a professional ethics issue if they're choosing to defraud TAPS.
But if that's the case, and in that example, TAPS would not give them a certificate for 10 hours. They would only give them a certificate for 4.
That's not how we do
Well,
it.
here's what happens, Roxanne. Basically, and I'm going to paraphrase what Mario's saying, if I can, Mario, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Basically, you as a registrant, when you register for the TAPS conference, are giving a piece of paper. On that piece of paper, it has every course, the amount of hours, and so forth. At the end of that seminar, when it's over, you fill out whatever that you took and you sign it, and then you separate it. It's a two-part thing. You separate it, you put yours in a little box for TAPS, and you take the other one home with you for your record. Well, what Mario is saying is, I may have only paid for 8 hours or 7 hours or whatever, but I've just filled out 15 hours and I've given it to TAPS. Well, when Lori, their executive secretary, goes through and reviews and sees that Tim Lingerfeld only paid for half of the seminars, yet he's claimed all the seminars, then we got an issue. And again, this is a TAPS issue.
And is Tim Lingerfeld, when he renews, going to turn in that list or a certificate?
Yes.
So
And
they
see-
don't get a certificate.
And see
that's what they
that's what I want. That's what I want to bring up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
I know Mr. Kerr's in the room. If I attend a seminar that Mr. Kerr does, he gives me a certificate that says I got this, so forth and so on. He signs it. Okay. Well, TAPS gives you that blanket one for their convention, and it's my bewilderment at this point in time, because we're getting ready to get there, as to whether or not this board should require an individual certificate. And I don't want to create a hardship on TAPS,
Right,
but
no,
what I'm saying is
we're exploring that
But
too.
we should
Right.
not. But we should not differentiate between TAPS and Mr. Kerr.
Correct.
As an example, when we're doing certificates for the licensee for continuing education, that they could be audited and have to perform. Because here's
now that we're seeing this problem.
exactly what's going to happen. The first group that we audit, there's going to be somebody that's a TAPS member, and we're going to say, hey, look, we need your hours. Lori's phone's going to ring and say, I've lost that paper from 2000 and whenever. I need you to send me a copy of it because the board is auditing me. Okay, well, and that's kind of where Mario's coming from, is that, hey, now's the time. We've got to get the word out to these people, all these other licensees. I shouldn't say these people, but the other licensees, so they understand this is how you need to perform for the board if you're audited. And that's one of my concerns is, although TAPS represents a lion's share of the licensees that are members, I don't feel like that TAPS should sort of work by a different set of rules from another licensee just because the other licensee goes to Mr. Kerr for a seminar or Red Vector or whoever it is that they go to, Mr. Thompson or whoever it is. I think they all should basically operate the same.
And the issue we're seeing, I imagine, has always been a nightmare and an issue. I mean, it wouldn't be new. So
And we've tried every year to come up with creative ways of streamlining the process and making it fair for everybody. And basically, it is on the honor system. When you get the form and you've got 15 or 17 PDHs that you can fill out, you're signing a statement saying that I pledge that this is true and correct. We have no way of once somebody turns in their piece of paper, we don't know if they've actually attended those courses. I mean, we do have sign-in sheets occasionally and stuff like that, but sometimes people aren't in the room when the sign-in sheet goes around, so there's a lot of, and when you're dealing with 400 or 500 people, that's very hard to keep up with. At the moment, it's very hard to keep up with. Afterwards is bad. So the system we came up with was 10 years ago is the system we're using now. It may not be the best system, but what I wanted to do was offer education through our ethics seminars to include the importance of correct reporting. And in order to do that, I wanted to be able to educate the attendees what the circumstances are if they fail to do that. So
I hope I've sort of answered your question. I realize you don't have a clear answer about.
no, I do. You've told us it can be anywhere from a small violation to
Right.
revoking. your
Well,
license.
but I mean, I'm talking about the actual document.
Right, and we're
that
still
a-
working
that
on
a-
that.
That a licensee leaves the convention with,
Right.
or receives later on, one or the other.
And we're still working on that, and we will continue to work on that. But the question that I really came up with was a question: is it an ethics issue, or is it a standards of practice issue when there's a failure to accurately report? Whether or not it's defrauding taps or not, that's sort of our issue. It's not.
I think it's a huge issue, ethics issue, because
Right, it is an ethics
in
issue.
effect, you're lying to the board.
Right.
In effect, if that's what you're
And my
doing.
question is, does the board have in our standards? Do we have a list of violations of what those ramifications are for ethical violations? That's basically what my question.
Let me ask, if we opened a complaint, if this person was audited, turned in their log is not accurate, they didn't attend 10 or 14 of those hours, and someone taps, someone that knew, someone would have to open the complaint. We would not if we accept that log.
We wouldn't know whether they were.
No one would, but- but-
They've attested to it.
Right.
We'd have to accept that.
Correct.
Now,
But-
TAPS, if I'm understanding correctly, would know that out of the 15 they are attesting to, that they only paid for 4 of them.
That doesn't mean that they didn't attend all
Right,
of them, they
right.
just failed to pay.
That's
So our
correct,
complaint loses its value, because our
Right.
complaint is not about whether they paid
It's whether
the
they're
organization or not.
educated.
Did they do it? And there's no proof if they sat
right.
there. So the complaint becomes,
Yeah.
I won't say silly, but we can't go anywhere with that complaint.
Right.
Right?
But a complaint for unethical practice could be open.
If someone can prove that they didn't attend the session.
So, yeah, it's on the honor system basically. It's everybody has the forms with the whole week's or the 3 or 4 days worth of seminars on them, and as they sit in the seminars, they complete their form when they leave the seminar that I was in. Whenever they're leaving the conference. So what we're looking at doing right now is we're looking at using the similar form, but putting a box at the top right when somebody pays for, let's say they're only going to attend the Thursday's conference. So Lori's going to put a number in the box when they register, 3, and then that goes in their registration packet that they've paid for 3 hours. And if the number that they report at the bottom doesn't match the 3, what we're tending to do is contact them and say, hey, this number doesn't match what you paid for. So did you attend more sessions? Yes, I attended more sessions. Well, then you owe TAPS more money. And if the number is different and it's because they just lied on it, we're going to give them the opportunity to correct the form before we report it.
I will refer you to the rule on audits. It says 0820-5-.13. The last part of the last paragraph says, should deficiencies be discovered, registrants will be notified and have 6 months to satisfy the deficiencies, except where such audits reveal fraudulent misrepresentations to have been made by the registrant.
The question there is, who's going to say that they didn't attend the session? You can't say, well, they didn't pay TAPS. It's, did they sit there and attend? Then I think it becomes difficult. And I'm only saying that to see if we need to create other changes.
Obviously, fraudulent would be a fake certificate, could be a lot of different things, And we have yet to do an audit, other than the way we've been doing them for years, but this audit will be done a little bit differently than in the past, and as we get into that, we're definitely going to have growing pains. It's just going to be a variety of things until we get through it.
And the point that our executive secretary made was, if we just handed a certificate out, Georgia does this. I was just down at Georgia's last weekend. When you attend the session, there are people standing at the door and they hand you your certificate as you walk out the door. What Lori sees as a problem with that is that when their board calls for an audit and they've lost their certificate, TAPS won't have a backup because they've handed out a certificate. We don't have a
No, it's not TAP's problem. I agree with Jackie 100%.
Right. No, but invariably, as you said, they will call and say,
they'll
you know,
call, yeah.
I need this, I don't have it, I don't know what I did with it. I know I was there, or I happened to leave the room when they were handing it out, and I know I can prove I was there. I've got witnesses that said I was there.
I'll give you a great example of something's out there that's not been promoted very much with TAPS. Is NCAAS has what's known as a CPC registry. It's free. For example, if you went to a seminar last week at Georgia, you go online with NCAAS, you register for that CPC registry, you take and scan in your certificates. Okay. You can burn them, throw them away, anything you want to make airplanes out of them, anything you want to do, because they're now scanned into that system. And then if you would happen to be audited by the state of Tennessee, you could just simply give them that registry, go to that registry, send any copies you need to the state.
So it's like a repository.
It's a repository,
okay.
And it's free. It's
right.
It's a perfect situation.
Maybe TAPS should consider doing their own repository so that our surveyors can turn in their own.
Can I get your mic here?
Sorry.
Thank you.
There's somebody sitting outside at a folding table the entire seminar, getting paid $10 an hour or whatever. And if you walk out early, you're not getting your time credit. And at the end of it, you sign it in. You don't keep track of anything, and they send the hours into the state for you. If I have a certificate from a seminar I went to, it's long been in the trash can. That's a better system. I know dollars are hard to come by to create something like that, but emailing it to people so that there's an email there is a good idea, or something like that, especially in these big 2-day, 3-day conferences.
You have multiple breakout sessions, because people can come in one room while they're giving out hands and go out the next door and get their certificate.
How hard is it to, have somebody at a folding table and saying, hey, turn in your form at the end of this to say that you did this, and then we'll email you whatever, and you wrote down your email address on there.
And as an example, and Tim knows, in Kentucky, and but the classes are smaller. You have a proctor. You sign in, and he's at the back of the room, and if you're gone, you don't slip out, so to speak. And then he is the one that has this. So, that's.
So we recognize that.
I know it'd be harder to do when you've got 300 people in a class versus 30 people.
And we recognize we have an issue, and we recognize there's a problem, but we also recognize that people are taking advantage of it. And they. Where do we need to police it? Does it happen at our end? And if it comes to an audit, where do we fit in support documents? Are we at all responsible for support documents? As Tim said, no, we're not. So that. I could throw all those documents out now.
But without some change to this log we're talking about, I don't know that the complaint process is going to get anywhere either. So
but if we find discrepancies on a form, I think it's fair for TAPS to say, if you filled out your form incorrectly, we're giving you the opportunity to fix this now before and then TAPS will formally send a complaint into the board.
And I'm sure you seem to be very capable of handling this problem. However, is it that hard for them to choose their classes before showing up at this conference?
They change all the time.
Well, tough.
Jackie jumps around. He puts 1 hour here.
Well, Jackie's difficult by nature.
But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you very much, Mario. I think Miss Jamie has returned with some information for us.
Thank you, and thank you again.
Thank you very much for getting
We
that.
will go back to Mr. Johnny Kerr's presentation, if that's okay with the board. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Give them a minute to get what they.
Very small print here.
know on the different conversations back and forth. I was having issues with Core that day. With my emails, and I had sent them to a board member. Apparently they didn't get them, so I sent them to another one. The previous board member responded to one, and then the second responded to the others. I could not attach everything.
Correct in presuming that you've made changes to these courses to try to get, they were declined originally.
Oh, no, sir, I've not made any changes. I was
thought I was
open to
reading from here.
suggestions. If you see where I need to improve, I would like to explain how the courses are conducted, though, if I may, when you want me to.
I think on the, on our iPads, we've got the education report. I'm hoping to tie all this together on page 115. At the bottom are the CURS seminars. We have a total of 5 seminars, if I'm not mistaken, that through various communication, we've asked that he appear here or possibly that they be denied, but we can have him explain each of them and deal with them based on the topic.
All right, let me get up to speed with what Miss Jamie just gave me here, if I may. What I'm seeing, Miss Jamie, is that you had sent this to the advisory committee, and I see there was only 4 courses sent to the advisory committee: ethics, dangers, and 2 encounters. So there's a 5th course.
That was a separate course.
Okay, and it was approved. Yes. So we'll take that now, the picture. So now we've got 4, 3 of which have been denied. Now, I show that Bart Craddy and Mike Roberts approved all 4 of those courses. Correct. For what he asked for. Then I show an email that was sent to me from you that said Jay's email rejected this.
Correct. His email.
Did his email rejected your sending it to him?
Right.
Okay.
I was having issues that day with the emails, sending documents. They've since corrected it. But when I sent it to him, it rejected it and brought it back to me. I tried taking away, putting it together. It would not send it to Jay. So I sent it to your email and told you that his email had not accepted it, and then when you sent me your response, then I responded back. Were you basing this off of?
Yes.
I wanted to make sure you didn't think I was saying Jay rejected it.
Well, that was what I understood, and,
Right.
and I certainly apologize to Mr. Kerr, but I understood that Jay had rejected the courses because it's only one sentence. It says Jay's email rejected this one.
That's why I'd like to see us just proceed.
That told me that he had reviewed it and he sent her a rejection email. And now I hear what Jamie's saying. She's just saying it wouldn't even go through to him.
So who
Okay,
we blaming for this, Tim?
Me, thank you. So I said I couldn't approve it because I wanted to discuss it, because I didn't know, because I don't see what Jay says, or if Jackie says, well, I don't see that, so I don't know what who's saying. So I'm just like, well, I can't approve it, we need to talk about this. So that's what we're here for today, to talk about it. So technically speaking, you have approval from our advisory board for your courses. So what I think that you need to do today is to paraphrase as best you can without going into minute details and actually teaching us the seminars.
Wasn't presumed to do so.
So that we can react either positively, negatively, or somewhere in between to you today. So again, I apologize for any confusion, but that's clearly what's happened.
That's understandable, sir, and I appreciate the opportunity. A situation surveyors encounter, I've got 10 situations, and some of them may seem simple, but what I do, my style in a seminar is to engage the class. I want them to write down, give them a few moments to write down their response, and then I want each one of them to tell me what they would do in that situation. That opens the floor up to someone else would say, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you? Because I find really we learn more from each other. I've got a lot of younger surveyors that really, they need mentors, people my age. I'm a pro. So they look up to us older surveyors, and then they will give advice, So that's how I handle these courses right here. And on the ethics and standards of practice, it'd be impossible to read through it. Although I have done seminars for Indiana, you have to read. So what I do is I take that course. I've got a small section of ethics, questions of ethics. We discuss ethics, and then we go into the standards of practice. And then we gloss over. Everybody gets a copy of the current standards of practice, so they have that with them. I mean, these courses are, of course. Also, in my seminars, I have a board that's open to everybody, so they can go up and give an example. We talk about all the examples. So that's my approach. Shows their interest, and we get a whole lot of different answers.
So the encounters seminar is basically a one-day situation where you start out with certain ones in the morning, discuss them, and then kind of conclude with either different ones or embellish those in the afternoon, basically is what you're doing.
Mr. Lingfield, what I try to do is, I know everybody doesn't need 16 hours. 12, they may need 4, they may need 8, so I structure it in 4-hour segments. That gives them the option of not having to pay for a whole day, and works out pretty good.
I'm very familiar with your seminars, and I'm very well aware that you've done it for quite some time.
Record. Your light's not turning on.
My light's
There
not
you go.
on?
Now it is.
And mine's off too.
You're good.
For years.
Thank you, Jackie.
I appreciate that, Mr. Lingfield.
Tim, Jackie, do y'all need to hear anything else, or based upon what we've
don't.
determined?
I don't. I
Okay.
just want to apologize again to Mr. Kerr for having to come and because of the confusion over the emails.
Sir, listen, it was important enough for me to come here. I appreciate it.
And,
it's
and the
good
board
education.
appreciates that.
Thank
The
you.
board sincerely appreciates you making that effort because it does show us your passion and your concern. And also, the documents that you've presented clearly show that you've been very thorough with this.
Thank you, sir.
So,
And this will be addressed in the education report, right?
Yes,
As we
and
move
it's
forward.
on your
That's where we
iPads
make a motion.
on-
That's where we will approve
Correct,
or
on page
or not.
115, we're almost there, so,
Okay.
yeah.
if you have anything else, we'll be glad. If not, we're going to go on to the education report. And as Jackie said, and Ms. Roxanne as well, we will address that and get this taken care of.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Have a nice day.
You
Yes, sir.
too, thank you.
If you'll wait just a moment, you'll be notified. How's that? There'll be no confusing emails if you'll wait just a moment.
Yes.
can be a scary place, sir.
After listening to some of the other stuff, right, I understand. Okay, we're now on the education report, Ms.
Yes,
Roxanne.
we're on the education part. It starts on page 115, 16, and 117 is the 3 pages of everything revised as of July 16th.
Here, we'll entertain a motion for the Education Committee report here.
I will point out that on the seminars that we have listed on page 115 for Mr. Kerr, I believe what the intent is to take away the denial and consider all.
Oh, yeah. If that's in the motion, yes, ma'am.
All the others, though, have been reviewed by the Education Committee.
Absolutely, and at least one
approved
member,
those.
yes, there is one denial on page 116, and I don't think that needed to be discussed, but you're welcome to, of course. That was based on the committee.
I would make a motion, we approve the education list amended to accept the 713 and 714, which are the items Mr. Kerr just presented to us. Accept those instead of denying those.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have any further discussion? And just to clarify, the motion is to approve all courses listed with the exception of 725, which is denied.
Yes, okay.
Is that fair, Jackie?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Kerr, again, thank you very much. Have safe travels home.
Sir, thank you. I guess I'm a little bit confused.
Yes, sir.
So I'm free to,
Yes, sir.
thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, I guess, Ms. Roxanne, we're up to legislative update.
We don't have any.
Okay.
Your current agenda doesn't have that on there, so I did remove it for that, that is posted for the public, and on your iPads, you don't have it. We would be on to the director's report.
I apologize.
No, you're fine. I think
did
I
look
had
at
it
the
originally.
previous one.
It is on page 124, and I'll give everyone a minute to get there. We start with the financial piece. We're at that not-so-fun stage where we're in the red, but we're all familiar with this part of the year. We've got financial information through May, and that brings us at a negative $95,226. We will hopefully by our next meeting be able to have the final numbers for our fiscal year 2019. So we've on this report you see the carryover from the previous year. So I think that helps us to at least see that we're still okay. We have 227,769, which includes the reserve.
That, the 227 does not include the 95 short. Is that correct?
It does.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Yeah, see
If
right
you
here.
notice, if you look,
It
for
started
example, in
here,
March,
just
we were,
Okay, I got you. All
Right, we lost
all right.
8,000.
So
And so-
once, even including 95 that's
yes.
deficit, we still have 227.
We're still okay, right.
Okay, got you.
And of course, we'll have several more months of heartache, but we were planning on opening up the renewal sometime in October, and that then we should historically, we start seeing a decent payment by November. December is our big month, of course. If we look down below to our renewal period that happens during our even years, when the money starts coming in, actually, we'll see that, by, this is January, when our folks are renewing. Any questions regarding our numbers?
I don't.
Next, we have the fun part of the 2019 renewal update. I did email this proposed change and information so that we can kind of jump ahead and not take too long finishing this up if we're at a good place. But it's also on your iPad starting on page 126. I'm using an example of a renewal process from 2017 on page 128 just to compare the questions. So that's where I'm getting the questions that are listed at the bottom of that page. So in 2019, when we do a renewal, the major changes will be the CE will be audit, which we've discussed for many meetings now. And then the other big piece that we've talked about is incorporating the disclosure questions so that all land surveyors, when they renew, can have an opportunity to bring this rule into compliance. Currently, that question about being the principal in charge and the disclosure is only part of the new applicants to complete. And often they, of course, won't have information because they're not necessarily working. And so we had discussed adding that to the renewal. So I can go through this form. I think we all have it in paper as well. Step by step, the questions, many of them are not changing. So number one has been our question on our renewal. Since the last renewal, have you been convicted or pled no solo contendere to, or no contest to a felony? If you answer yes, a copy of the final judgment must be included. That's a yes/no question. It's not going to be changed. Second question, since your last renewal, have you been subjected to disciplinary action by any government or professional agency? Yes/no answer. That also is not being changed. Number three, I attest that I have completed 30 PDH in development, up to 15 carryover each year. That question is slightly changed. If you look at the form on page 128, it just says I have completed. And so we're changing that for it to say I attest that I have. So that's a slight change. Number four, I attest that I have completed all the required education credits and the professional development hours are available if I am selected during the audit. So that is a key component. That's simply a yes.
May I ask a question at
Absolutely.
this point? Question 3 and 4, in my mind, are a little redundant, and I wonder if they could not be combined and still have the same value in the scenario of the question.
Sure. The key is if it's a yes/no, will we let them continue with the renewal?
Well, it's for example, in question 3, we speak to 30 and carryover. Okay, in question 4, we speak to completing all required educational credits. I think that's the question in my mind that we're asking the registrant anyway. I don't know that we need to hold their hand and tell them they need to have 30.
Get rid of 3 altogether.
Yeah. Well, I think that the only part of 3 that has value is about the carryover hours, but I don't think that it has to be specifically mentioned because 4, I think, takes care of the whole thing.
Right. It points to the right rule.
That's
Yes.
just my thought.
You are the experts in the renewal process and where we've been going with this, so I welcome. That makes sense to me as well.
I think just cut it, probably. I have a question, actually. I just started looking at this and was kind of curious. Is there something that a felony conviction in the statute keeps people from being land surveyors? I'm not seeing the statute here, but
Go ahead.
You're welcome, Rock.
No, go ahead.
So in not only this statute, but every board, we would have the right to deny or a felony applicant. And at this point, because of the Fresh Start Act, if we did, it would come before you and you would have to meet the 6, I believe it is, to justify why that felony is relevant to the industry in particular and why you would deny. So they've always had to attest and let us know if one was there. Many times they will say, yes, I've had disciplinary history or a felony, and then they send us the documents. That doesn't even come before the board if it is an unrelated, if it's a drug.
Not related to truthfulness.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And so there, our office would consider it, and we don't bother the board with it.
Okay, good enough.
Question 6, I think. Five.
So
Okay.
5 is no different. We've always asked this, and it is needed for us. Is this your first renewal? So number 6. If you answer yes to the above question, please provide the initial registration pursuant to, and that's been there as well, I think.
I don't think you need the yes, no after it.
It's the date. We need the date.
Yeah, but I mean, you had yes, no
Yes.
right after
No,
question
that's
6.
Right. That's my bad.
And I don't think you need, it's perfectly fine, but I don't see the purpose of having the rule there.
It's been there, so you think if we take that out, we're better?
I mean,
Oh, okay.
all you're going to just ask them, if it's
Okay.
their first one, it's going to
And
be
then the
yes or
date.
no. If it's yes, then what date did you get licensed, and you're going to plug that in, and that's it.
Yeah, Tim's right, but
Just keep it
not
simple.
a huge difference, but Tim's
Remove
correct.
the last sentence.
Yeah.
This is the good thing with going back and forth with attorneys. They do like adding these pieces, so I'm glad that you all are taking them away. We're going back to what it was.
Attorneys are the worst,
I
aren't
know.
they?
If you look at the example from all of our renewals, it wasn't there. So good, we're going back to that. Number 7, I qualify for an exemption from continuing education. I think that's exactly and the rule was listed there, so we've left it there?
I want to speak to that one, if I may.
Yes.
The last words say, "and the fillable form." Where is the fillable form?
We still have the form for the exception on the website.
Well,
Now, we also can provide a link to it
Okay.
through the VO system when you
I
renew.
think that would be fine.
Okay.
So that, I mean, if a person fills that, checks it yes, and they've got to have a form to fill out, they've got a way to get to it, because on down to question 9, you speak to that for them. Because it says form available online.
No, we can provide a link.
Either link or form available online, whichever, just so that individual that qualifies under that question has that ability to go to it. They don't have to call the office and hold.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it should have been there when we renewed in 2017. I just don't recall it enough right now to know that we linked. Not that many take it, but yes, they have access to it through the renewal. Number 8 is not a big change. I think I highlighted the sentence that's in parentheses, so that has been there. What we've put, or I have put, is this could be deleted. None of our licensees at this time were born before 1928. I actually ran birthdays, so we're going to get rid of number 8.
Didn't have to have continuing education if he was born before 1928, Mario.
It'd be what, 91?
Yeah.
We have someone that is right at 93, I think was our oldest, just missed it by a year, so that's when and still renewed in 2017, so. Going to Rule 0820-04-.10, each business that provides land surveyor services to the public in Tennessee must fill out a form disclosure form. Are you a Tennessee licensee in responsible charge of a firm in Tennessee providing these services? And that would be a yes, no. If yes, attach and that will be a link to the form as well.
I really would like to see that one.
The form itself?
Caught up to date. No, that particular item caught up to date.
And this is
because I don't feel like that across the state that we have the people have filled those out.
We agree. We've talked about it. I don't think I've
Yeah.
seen it in the years that I've been here, guiding you all or helping you. So this is the best place to catch up with it. My concern and question then to the licensees that renew is, is this question clear enough or going to confuse anyone? Because we don't want 1,000 or so calls. I mean, we're pointing
I
to.
think most licensees understand that
Okay.
if they are the primary surveyor in their office, that they have to fill that form out.
Good.
I mean, even if you work for Company A and you have 5 or 6 satellite offices, there should be a licensed surveyor in every office that's responsible.
I'm excited of this opportunity to get us in good shape. So that document then will live in the renewal file of this licensee, but it's accessible through anything that they change their address at any point if we needed it. But it's time to bring it current. So that'll take care of 2 things.
Good.
Okay, that wasn't that painful. Thank you. I will make the changes and then probably, just to safeguard us all, email them to everyone on the board, just so if I miss something, I'll make sure that Stuart has a chance to look at it, that we've not done anything we've all missed.
Sorry to
Yes.
jump in when I know we're about to wrap
Sure.
it up. This was based on you or the attorney's
Both,
questions?
both.
Okay.
And Ashley, so I don't think Stuart has even seen this
Okay.
or is had to dive into what we're doing for this renewal cycle. Ashley did. I made the changes. We went back and forth, and then toward the end, I actually have a previous example of what it looked like online.
Okay.
So it'll
All
look
right.
exactly like that.
So I was just, it looks like it has multiple sets of eyes that says this is all we need to know. There's no other questions we need to add or anything like that. Okay, good.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
And I would just like to make a statement in general, mainly because Mario's here with TAPS, so he can.
Let me-
he can-
sorry.
Yes, sir, go right ahead.
Is it pronounced Mario or Mario?
However you want to say it.
Because I feel like Tim's been doing it wrong every time I hear him say it.
Because it's Southern, which is okay. I mean, if you're a Nintendo guy,
Which I am, since I'm younger than
Right, I don't
Tim.
know what Nintendo is.
Okay, so all right, I just didn't want Tim to continue to keep offending you. Yeah. All right, go ahead, Tim.
Mario's looked over me for a long time, so no start. Now, I just wanted to say that on the renewal, that on January the 1st of 2020, if you have not submitted this form,
No, let me correct you. If you
And-
have not gone online and renewed online, which include all these questions and possible 2 attachments. Yes, sir.
what I was going to say was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you've not submitted this form via online and or paid your fee, you will automatically be audited.
We said we would give it until January 30th, I believe,
Right.
is the date, or the last day of the month.
Right.
Correct. But we will do our first round of audits probably by the middle of January. And so that should capture everybody. And unless they simply forgot to do something, everybody after that will automatically have to provide the information.
The point I'm making, Mario, is that no more hand-holding, no more excuses, and us sitting here in our April meeting trying to figure out what we're doing with 79 people that haven't either sent their continuing education or their money in, which is a different process now. So, and I don't think that the board will be very lenient per se with people who are audited that haven't conformed with their continuing education. That's what I'm telling everybody now for a couple of years, so gotta get on with it.
We are on to new business, and I think, Tim, this mostly is back just conversations, making sure that we can continue some of the changes we're looking at. The only other item I have on our iPads is the proposed 2020 schedule, which I already know one of those dates clashed with an NCWS meeting. We can address it first, or just go down the new business at hand on the agenda.
Well, we've been kind of all over the map today, so we'll be consistent, and let's go ahead and address those dates.
You got it, you got it. So based on every other meeting that we have in particular, we set the land surveyors meeting dates as January 23rd, April 23rd, July 23rd, and October 22nd. Those are all the third Thursdays in the month, as consistent. We wanted to change one of them for sure, correct? What is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
date?
The April 23rd,
Okay. How do we want to move that, forwards or backwards?
whatever the board's pleasure. And I would ask, when are the engineers meeting at that time?
Is the April meeting the one?
Because 2020 it would be the year that we would try to meet with them for a couple hours if we can. Find out what Stuart's really doing with them that he's not helping us with.
So their dates, unless we came up with any problem, they would have met on the 8th and 9th of 2020, which is the Wednesday is the engineering committee, and then Thursday is the full meeting.
We normally meet with the committee.
Right, the Wednesday before. So
April, what month?
April,
Okay.
if April's the month we're going to look at, we could move it and just. Would be April 8th. Do you want me to look for that date? Make sure that that's the A&E meeting, and then
It's better for me if we move forward instead of back a week or move forward a couple weeks, just because my anniversary is May 1st. So,
we wouldn't be meeting with the A&E board
That's
in
fine.
April, if that's okay. Then we
That's
can
fine.
try to find
We'll
another
just
meeting
catch them
date.
up at NCWS
You
and
got it. You got it.
do that.
So if we do that to accommodate Jed, and I think we should, or would love to.
you don't have to.
Yeah.
Tim, if
Oh,
you
it's
think it's
fine.
important for.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
We
We'll make it
could do
work.
it on the 16th if we
Okay.
went backwards, but if Jed prefers to go later in the month, it would be April the 30th.
Well, I'd prefer to go earlier
Oh, okay.
to avoid being April 30th, the day before my anniversary.
Oh, May
when I
1st.
get
I
killed.
thought it was
Yeah.
April 1st.
So, yeah.
I got you. Okay.
Go forward.
So you
Okay.
could go back to the 8th.
You could go back to the 8th. If that works
which
out,
is a
let me
Wednesday.
look at April
Instead of Thursday.
the 8th,
Or
which
we
is a
do-
Wednesday.
Yeah. Let's just do the 16th.
The 16th?
If-
Yeah,
if that's
I
all
like
you
that.
got.
Yeah, yeah,
16th
yeah.
all right with
That's
y'all?
fine with me.
Okay.
Let's just do the 16th.
Sounds great.
So we need a motion to approve these dates.
Please.
I make that motion with the April date being moved from the 23rd to the 16th.
I think you said that correctly, and I will second that.
All those in favor?
I,
Okay.
me and you, Jackie, we just made it happen.
There you go. That's right. All righty.
I'll revise those and send them to everyone, just so that you can put them on your calendar. And
it's just-
comedy applicants, and this is our conversation, I think.
What page are we on?
It is not on your iPad.
Oh,
This
okay.
is part of the items that we've had, I think twice, maybe, already on our iPads, just conversations with our comedy applicants, how to better welcome to the state, license them, review their information, the exams, the state-specific exam that's no longer being offered in Kentucky. I think we've talked about it during this piece. So I'll turn it over to Tim, and
I'd really like Jay to be here for, continuation of that discussion, because it may, no disrespect to anybody else, but it may be a situation at some point in time we look about maybe doing something a little bit different with our state specific.
want to skip it?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
skip this one for right now.
Sounds great.
I do have a topic I want to fill in with that, if we can. I have reviewed two applications recently, and one of those applications provided the two plats that we request, but those two plats that were provided were fictitious. And they fictitious, they just made it up. Our application rule says that two survey plats are to be prepared by the applicant under the individual supervision of a registered land surveyor. This particular example comes about because the individual that applied was a registered land surveyor in another state. This individual chose to create fictitious plats to demonstrate that he could meet the standards of the state of Tennessee for purposes. I reviewed the plats on that merit, and on that merit, the plats had all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, with the exception that they were fictitious, and the exception that no one else actually certified that, that they had been responsible because this individual was licensed from out of state. Again, this falls in sort of in the comedy situation. I don't know how the other members feel about that. I don't think that was the intent of what this board has asked for many, many, many years by that particular rule. So I'm going to speak to another one, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jay and Jed, or Jackie and Jed. Too many J's. Everybody's a J but me. That's probably good. The second application I had was from an applicant that had been a prior licensee, and license was expired, and they presented plats with an expired stamp on it. And I personally take great offense at that. Even though the person had been licensed, what was not only offending was that it had an expired stamp on it, and then it had things that didn't meet our standards. So I kind of feel like, and the reason I bring this up is I kind of feel like that we as a board need to kind of address this. I wouldn't say it's a policy matter. I just think we need to address it in some manner, maybe question and answer on the website or something of that nature. But, the out-of-state applicants, I would prefer to see one of their plats that they tweak to meet our standards than a fictitious plat. And somebody that's not licensed, there's enough rules and statutes in here that really says that they shouldn't be doing that. And I hope that applicant, we're able to maybe get that applicant in here to talk to. I want to see what Jackie and Jed thought about that. I'm just concerned about these plats. They need to have a little more level of consistency to meet what our rule asks.
Well, in regards to the first one and the fictitious surveys, while the structure and the information may have met standards, I had great problems with the fact that it was a fictitious survey. I may be wrong, but my first reaction was, I was playing this board for a joke. Second matter, I have great concern that somebody that's requesting to I don't know the reason why they were expired to begin with, but that they used an expired stamp. I'm great concern over that one also.
Got the school hall monitor here. Let me ask this. I assume when you take the tests or whatever it is to become land surveyors, you have to submit something, just like as an attorney, and they don't make me submit anything that's based on a real case. I'm just asking because I don't know, and there may be an answer. What does it matter if it's real or not?
Well, I think between the two of us, we spoke to both sides of that.
Sure.
I understand where Jackie's coming from. The fact that somebody, one map was about a university football team, and another map was about country music stars. I mean, it's kind of, it just makes you wonder if, if they just chose that because it was simple, or did they choose that because they wanted to make a little light of the fact that they had to submit something to us?
I haven't had an opportunity to go back and go through this with a
Sure.
fine-tooth comb, but, it says you're to submit 2 surveys. It doesn't say, I don't think it says examples of surveys. It says 2 surveys to show.
I mean, if that's what it says, we should hold them to that, obviously.
But it could be a matter of interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, it says, an application for registration shall be accompanied by 2 survey plats prepared by the applicant, okay, under the individual supervision of a registered land surveyor. Okay? Such plats must comply with all the standards of practice and bear the seal of the supervising registered land surveyor. So, in my mind, if I'm referencing an applicant for them to be able to become a licensed surveyor, I want to provide the board with and I'll give you an example why I say this. I want to provide the board with a product that is exemplary of the work that I put out. And I have mentored this young person, male or female, to be able to produce this product, and it's something that I would give to the public. Now, the reason I say that is, heretofore, several years ago, I think Mr. Northcutt was on the board at that time, we had a applicant come in here and provided 2 plats, and they were absolutely horrible. And we filed a board complaint. It may have been Jackie instead of Galen, but anyway, we filed a board complaint. And the registrant that signed off on these plats for that applicant, 2 things happened. One, the applicant was denied because the plats didn't meet our standards. And 2, the registrant that signed off had a complaint filed against him and had a civil penalty assessed. All from that application. Because it was a document, it was a real document that they presented to this board. And that's where the making light of us, as Jackie said earlier, about these fictitious plats, that's where a concern comes in, because this board, on more occasion than one, has filed complaints on documents that's been presented to us. Now, that was obviously when we were sitting here unfolding them and all of us going through them all at one time. We do it differently now, but we still look at them in the same merit. So, that's kind of where my concern comes from. Roxanne Mario would like to address the board.
Is it possible I could weigh in?
Certainly.
No.
Certainly.
I would just like to take it from the perspective of the person that's submitting these plats. So if we're taking the example of someone that's trying to get licensed in Tennessee that's never set foot in Tennessee, and if they read the requirement, they may interpret it, and that may require clarity. If they interpret it that they need to see a Tennessee survey, now with all the requirements that are around the side and the border and all that sort of stuff, that meets Tennessee requirements, they've met that. But because they haven't done a Tennessee survey, it may be the reason why they put a fictitious document in the center. I think if it was clear that they could use a survey from their state with the Tennessee requirements, I think that might solve that issue, or certainly make it more direct that there's no confusion. I don't know if I was doing that. I may have done something the same, but the intent wouldn't be to ridicule the fact that I was sending it in. So it may be a clarity perspective.
I'm glad you're standing there. Let me ask you some questions. What rule are you looking at, Tim, so I can pull it up?
0820-1-.02.
Does anybody know what page that's on my 0820-what?
-1-.02.
.02, applications. Okay, so very first page.
Yeah.
Mario. Okay. Okay. It's the very first, you're going to have to come back out here, Jackie. Oh, okay. And the very... Okay, so you've had conversations about this very issue ever before? Ever had a conversation? Never. Okay. So as you heard what Tim read is required there, what would, if someone comes to you as a representative tax,
Mario, tell me what I need to do to
Right.
fill out an application in Tennessee. Would you tell them, having no knowledge and never having a conversation about it, reading what Tim just wrote, you would say, hey, it's okay because you've never done a survey here to do a fictitious one. Hey, you need to submit from Kentucky, knowing full well, your opinion is just as a layperson with some knowledge of what surveyors do. What would you tell them?
Right. I would tell them to submit a plat that they have done,
Okay.
and I would tell them to outline, to fill in the plat, because the codes of my state may be different from the codes in Tennessee, so I would adjust my plat and the notes accordingly so that it shows that it fills a specific standard of care that Tennessee requires, but it would have my plat on it. Now, reading the document the way it is, I think there's vagueness in there.
I agree. I 100% agree
So there's
with
vagueness.
you.
So if I'm the one that's going to submit a plat, I don't know if you're looking for me to actually submit a Tennessee plat, which I've not done, or just make sure I just get the boundary stuff information or the note stuff information in, which satisfies that you know that I'm going to put the right information on the plat.
I 100% agree with you. And
Right.
being in the position you are, you have some intellect about you that some of our maybe less versatile surveyors do not possess. And so they read this and they have no clue.
I think my response would be, if I was in your place, would be to draft a letter saying, could you please resubmit these? Without just calling them in and saying, hey, we're
And having Tim yell at them and
probably,
be
well,
intimidating.
Tim will probably yell at them
Or we could
anyway.
do the letter in all caps.
Yeah, well, or Jay yelled at the last guy, so, yeah.
But with regard to the other seal, I'd like to address that part.
Sure.
The surveyor could have interpreted that. He may have done the survey, so if you check the address on, not the address, if you check the date on the survey, was he licensed when he sealed that survey?
No, we've
He was
looked at
not.
that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he wasn't.
Yes.
Because if he did the plat and then had a date on it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that-
Because he may have thought the same thing. Oh, I need to show that I am a licensed surveyor. I did the survey when I was still licensed, but I'm still putting my seal on it because I want to show.
18 days.
18 day, yeah, and he expired in 15. But anyway, that's a different deal.
Okay.
But, Jed, you're right on course, as always. The key here is communication. And I think right now we have somewhat of a lack of communication.
Right.
We have a rule and we got a sample plat on the website, but we have not really clarified it to the best. And that was my whole purpose for discussing this item, was to say, hey, look, we need to craft some language or something so that a comedy applicant in particular can understand that if they're from Ohio, just send us an Ohio map, but make sure that you've modified it for demonstration purposes only. And I think we do say that to meet the standards of practice of the state of Tennessee. That's all we need. That's all we need.
Historically, at least the ones that I reviewed that are out of state do that. It's one of their surveys from their home state, or sometimes they're licensed in multiple states. But even with the fictitious survey, if he had noted, hey, this has been presented as to how I would survey if I was licensed in Tennessee.
Some sort of cover page.
Something
Yeah.
beyond just sending those. And I know it's not required, so.
But, as I tell everybody that I try to help get licensed as they come along, is you have to remember that the only way the board knows you, unless they know you personally, is through X number of sheets of paper that you send them. And that's the only thing they know about it. I mean, it's just like, Sue Brawley, who was our public member for many years, the first thing she looked at on applications was the picture. She wanted to see what these folks look like, and, we don't even have those anymore.
Good thing. Right?
Well,
Why would that matter?
She always got upset when they were in wife-beater T-shirts. That was her favorite thing. She said, "I don't like this guy. He's in a wife-beater T-shirt." now. But anyway, that's a sidebar.
Well,
but the thing is, we need better communication on this particular item.
I think you're right. Mr. Northcutt, you want to weigh in on this or no? How we doing?
I think you're doing very well.
Okay.
Now, you've touched on something that we may want to think about rulemaking hearing to clarify and actually make some improvements here. At the last meeting, we talked about the 2 plats being needed, and best I can recall, we didn't have a really good reason to need 2. If we can have 1 good plat that makes sense, it would be something, I think our legislators would agree, would be less cumbersome on the applicant to have to come up with 2 when 1 suffices. So I think, not that Stuart's dying to start a project, but it may be a good time to do this, because we keep addressing, how to better communicate, but the rule is just not clear. As an attorney, you're even saying it's not.
But it's vague. I mean, what's the remedy? An explanation page on the website that no one may ever read?
Right.
A comment on the statute?
No.
I don't know.
No.
I mean, I think that's somebody else's job other than mine, probably. But
And if the statute anyway, we're looking to reduce the 2 plats to 1, this would be a key time. And on the plat, I think we can write in, for comedy applicants, plat from your licensed state is perfectly acceptable as long as it's compliant with.
Stuart, what do you say?
I think we need to look into it. I mean,
And it's a lengthy process, so we can start on the work and draft it, and you all have probably been through it many times. We present our suggestions. You don't love it, it's not clear enough, we'll go back and forth. We determine if it needs to go before a rulemaking hearing, because it could be controversial, or we proposed rules. But I think this is a good time because we don't see a large number of applicants. So for the ones that we do see, it would be wonderful to get them through and get them working and get them to take that state exam quicker rather than defer them or deny them for something that maybe they could have avoided. I'm not saying that the expired stamp was avoidable. I get that, but I think if the rule is clear and we can point to it, it definitely holds all the weight.
There's no question in my mind that it should speed the process up. Because we've had some that's drug on for quite some time, as Miss Jamie well knows.
Could we, since Stuart is new to this program, definitely, if you would like, Jackie, Jed, Tim, we welcome suggested language for this piece of the rule, since you look at, especially Jackie and Tim, you look at the applications themselves, how could we tweak it? And then he will fill in the gaps on the legal wording to make sure it's in line with the laws. But at least get us a start. That way for the next meeting, you'll actually have red line proposed rules.
I'm sure you guys are excited to volunteer for that.
So we're looking at.
No, I think the rule is on the application process.
Just that one section.
Just that. That's
But I mean,
it.
if we're going to go through a rulemaking
I mean, you're welcome
process.
to. You're welcome to.
And we all know that if we're lucky, they would be in effect a year from now. If we're lucky.
You're right.
Would
And
it not be
Absolutely.
worthwhile, or if we see anything else that needs to be updated, changed, eliminated?
Present it. That doesn't mean that, it'll be a great time to open everything, but it definitely, if it's a cleanup item, if it's anything that can become less confusing, less burdensome to the applicant, those kind of things, I think can move relatively quickly.
Respectfully, then, would it be all right if you basically just sent each of us an email, mainly to include Jay, since Jay's not
Absolutely.
requesting that we do a red line markup of 0820-1 for further discussion at our October meeting?
Absolutely.
That way we're all on notice and we can do it, and because it's not a very big, it's only a couple pages.
Right.
It has our civil penalties in it, which we can't touch.
Correct. Oh, please don't.
It's got the fees we can't touch. So, I mean, it's got some stuff we can't touch.
No, I'd be happy to. I think we've been talking about this in different angles. I think that's how we resolve a lot of things. Okay.
I just want to get that cleaned up because, I'm still hopeful one of these days we can be like Kentucky and for particularly the comedy applicants, just drop the Tennessee state specific. But, this may be another step in that direction, that we start to get it cleaned up, and once we get it cleaned up, then, a year or two down the road, we actually could do that.
That sounds great. I will do that. If not today, by tomorrow, you'll have my email. And new business, I think that's comedy and application reviews. We kind of touch both of those.
Unless we actually have some that we actually need to look at.
You have 3, and we can do those, I think we've done them at the very end.
Yes.
We can decide if we're going to take lunch. The only other pieces that we have, quick piece on the NCWS meeting is, it's in Washington, D.C., August 14th through the 17th.
13th.
13th.
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, I think we are going on the 14th through the 17th.
You are going to get a go to
Yes,
this? Okay.
yes.
And Stuart, you're going?
Stuart's
We're
gonna
glad to
go.
have you. You should really enjoy it, and it's very enlightening.
Jed, next year, hopefully, we'll look forward to having you go. But yes, we are all going.
You got the baby business, the anniversaries, and all this other
Give me a
stuff.
few more years.
Yeah, we'll get you plugged in. Okay, so if we can, why don't we go ahead and take lunch, if that's all right? And then we'll come back and review those applications and also before we do, on the expert reviewer situation, I would also like Jay to be here in attendance on that so we can discuss that.
Let me ask one thing before we adjourn for lunch. Is the only thing after lunch going to be the application reviews, or is there something else that we need to cover?
I think that's it.
Okay.
That would be it. Yeah, so if
Yes.
stage right, that's fine.
Did that still give a quorum?
Well, for application
For
review, I'm
application, you only
usually
need
not
2,
here
right?
anyway.
You only need 2.
Yeah.
If that's fine.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that's fine, I mean, if you want to do that, Jed, that's perfectly fine. I'll just be envious of you. You'll be headed at me on the road.
Headed back to the office.
Absolutely. That sound good? So we'll take an hour break?
Mario?
Absolutely.
Mario, whatever.
Don't even try, Tim.
Mr. Forte, how's that? There you go. There you go, Mr. Forte.
That's too formal.
You can say I missed that one up.
That'll make Tim feel bad. He's going to run me off.
Sorry, I'm wearing the mic out here. The 2020 conference for March 5th, 6th, and 7th is set for Murfreesboro. All of our PDHs have been approved. Thank you very much for that. I do have a slot opening on Friday, the 6th of March, that if you wanted to address the board, you would like some time to fill in and talk about. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to address, but I do have a slot open if you'd like to fit in there.
Absolutely.
You know, that comes at a good time, I think, for us, because we'll have gotten through the renewal process. We'll probably been through a portion of the audit process, and it'll be a good time in case there's some questions come up to handle that and anything else.
I think that's what we did last
Yes.
time, and it's a
Yes.
huge group. We welcome all the questions. I think it's well with
Right.
everybody.
There are other sessions going on at the same
Okay.
time, so you won't have
Okay.
the full group, but if anybody wants to come in and
Absolutely.
I'll put you in the schedule.
It'll be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's now 11:42. We're going to take lunch and come back here at 12:45. How's that? And Mr. Jed will be safely on the road.
That's right. Jay had that was so important that he had to.
Jay had welcome back. It's now 12:58. We're a couple minutes late, but we're back. And the only thing we have remaining on our agenda is to review 3 applications, make some decisions about those, determine PDHs for the meeting, and unless Ms. Roxana has anything else, and then we'll adjourn.
The only thing I have, and I'm happy to read it, is after we took a break at the last meeting, Mr. Thompson had stayed on the record and wanted to send us an email and had some more questions. I explained that we were off the record, that he could send it to me. So it may be that we're able to make a decision instead of send this to you all. I'll be happy to read this. It says, I would like the board to consider another seminar to be revisited. It is Standards of Practice, CER 1963-18, accepted for 1 PDH, and I requested 2. It involves reviewing Section 0820-03, which is 12 pages long. I am presently preparing this seminar, and there's no way I can adequately cover it in an hour. Would we consider changing that to 2 hours? With Jamie, make sure we've got the right one, so that would change the course to 2 hours instead of the 1. Also, I applied for an ethics seminar on July 8th that I would like to be reviewed at this meeting. Does that ring a bell at all, ethics seminar?
It's a new one.
Okay. So,
The review
that'll follow its normal course. That's okay? Thank you for letting me get this done, and I'll let you all then cover the 3 applicants.
Before we do that, Mr. Chairman, I do want to, I failed to mention earlier, it's been brought to my attention that of the possibility of some firms that are practicing without a license, and I just wanted to go on the record that we are looking into that, and we'll try to address it in more detail at our next meeting.
Just a quick question. Do you mean the individuals working within the firm don't have a license?
But I say firm. It could be individuals.
Okay.
We're still.
Okay, because the firms themselves don't get licensed by the board.
Right,
Okay,
right. Some individuals. I
Perfect.
misspoke on that.
thank you.
Oh, that was.
Smith, all I saw he lacked was names on the,
Well, it is, and yes, if we don't view these and get them done at home, this is not a good course to look at them. And the drawback is we don't print anything anymore, so even trying to print the plat for you all would be terrible. Anytime we're stuck with these being reviewed, it's cumbersome to say the least. I agree with you. I find that checking the bottom of the page where you get the page numbers and then skipping to them is a little bit faster than one by one. Yeah. On Jonathan David Smith, the first one. I think he's 1 to page 50, maybe, all the way.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking.
Oh, okay. scared them a little bit. And it's better, right? We don't have as many during this time frame as we used.
Smith, you had approved it based on what I saw in here.
Right.
I'd ask for deferral, but I think with our conversations this morning that I can go ahead and approve it until we.
That's Jonathan David Smith will be an approval. Thank
Jackie, you fill the form out, right? Yes. Okay. Because I've already got mine filled out.
you. Got it.
I don't have. Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I think the next one starts on your iPads on page 51. It's David Robert Boblet, the second.
Public, yes.
So we can approve it.
I don't remember what my remarks were. I didn't bring that with me. But I sent it to Jamie.
And Jackie's got a deferral, so we can either way kind of go through it.
They had a deferral as well. I saw that.
Second time around. First time he deferred.
Yeah, not the first time, second time.
1/11/19 is deferred.
Yeah, but then there was an email. If you go back to the beginning.
Bing?
Bullock, this horse is not going to change stalls in the barn.
Roy Lamar
He's
Bullock?
denied.
Okay. If you'll both fill out, you already have? Yeah, yours was.
Jackie's going to do on Bullock, but I'm denying him.
Reviewing David Robert, right? Boblet, just to make sure
Boblet,
we've
yeah.
got.
Like I say, I've already reviewed it, sent a form in, so I'm trying to get it from my office right now.
Okay.
I can't.
For some reason, I'm sorry.
Not meeting our standards. There's no,
I don't
no
remember. All I'm trying to find out is what I said about it. I don't. Yeah, I know. It seemed to me I deferred it because it didn't have all the stuff on it.
Right. And see, that's the one that's,
Yeah.
it's got a fix. I had deferred it because it doesn't, the plats don't meet our standards.
I think that's probably what I did too. But again, I sent it in yesterday.
Can you, then on him, just so you don't have to get, now, if you both agree on what's deficient, we can write it up brand new right now and send him a,
It's the same old thing. I mean, it's 0820-07 and 09. It's the same old story. And like I say, I did send mine in yesterday. But I cannot get it.
didn't get it yesterday, Jamie? Okay. And I'm looking at Jackie's. Now, the statute isn't quoted, but are you comfortable if Jamie sends this information? Plats do not meet the standards?
Yes.
Descriptions don't either. If I'm not mistaken. I'm going to look at Jackie's right here because.
Find it, you'll send it to us? Yours isn't
It
changed?
appears that these are fictitious surveys also, because there's the seal. It doesn't, in addition to all that though, the plats still don't meet our standards.
No.
Are we giving him enough information so if he can correct it, he's able to? Or can we write down a new form that we can send him after this meeting? So if he can correct the plats and do anything else, and I see here, plats must meet the
I'll be
standards.
glad to resend mine to Jamie
Okay.
as soon as I get home.
Okay,
That's no problem.
so that one's not changing. We will send him that information if he
Put a
can.
deferred and we'll get him going.
Then you've only got our newest applicant, I believe, because we read.
We still have Mr. Bullock.
I thought
Jackie hadn't spoke to Mr. Bullock.
Okay. So Jackie's going to review it?
Oh, no, I
Okay.
reviewed it. I had put it to defer and discuss here, but Tim's already brought up the concerns I had, that goes up as with his stamp on it, which was expired, but yet the survey was dated. That he was expired. My opinion is not a.
You're denying him, right?
I'm going to deny him until he stands right there in front of me on that podium right there and answers questions.
Jamie, were we able to reach him? to give him the option to come? Yeah. Yeah. Something must have come up. So we've got, again, on Mr. Bullock,
I
we've
think
got
he
denied.
doesn't he live close? I'm just trying to see here.
Starts on page 121.
Yeah, I'm there, but I'm trying. This one says he lives in Mississippi. Madison, Mississippi.
As long as we've got a good explanation to pass on to them, we've got Bullock down as well. We would have Christopher Bryan Reagan left, and he starts on page 174. Neither of you, it's my understanding, neither of you have seen this.
I would prefer to take it to have Jamie send it, and I.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Quickly here,
Yeah,
especially when
and
it's not
here we're
hard.
only going to see what you've already debated. I think that's the only way we can work around the iPads. Don't you agree?
I mean, you know, the difference of us sitting here for an hour and a half and doing it versus us doing it and sending it to Jamie tomorrow is not going to delay, I don't think, the applicant at all.
That's the plus to us doing it regardless of the meeting time. It's only those that we are not coming in agreement and need to come together to discuss.
Comedy, anyway, Reagan is. Comedies are normally not too bad.
We're good with him being reviewed at home, right? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that's the better way.
Like I say, we're only a day or two away from having
No,
it, so.
that's our process. We'll put him in both of your email share drives. So you're able to see.
Here, Bullock signs his seal 7/31/18.
Yes.
Right above his seal, it says it's done in compliance with Tennessee minimum standards. I have heard.
And he is our land surveyor that's reapplying, correct? I don't have it mixed up. Yeah.
I have said many a time at TAPS meetings to surveyors, the most important plat that you ever draw are the ones that are submitted to the Board of Examiners. I believe it. I truly believe it.
Good?
I think we're good.
I think I've read them clearly, make sure I don't have anything wrong, and that Jamie has what she needs. Jonathan David Smith, he is approved. David Robert Bloppett II, he is deferred, and our form will explain the pieces that he's missing. And on Roy Lamar Bullock, he had previously been denied. We recommended that he appear before the board, and we're not changing the decision.
Reagan, we will review at
we normally
our leisure in the next couple of days. Right, Mr. Dillahey?
Yes, sir.
All right. It is now 1:20. If you want to make the motion, I'll second. Okay, got a motion and a second for four PDHs for this meeting. Are those in favor? Aye. Okay. Ms. Roxanne, is there anything else that you have?
Not a thing. I look forward to seeing both of you along with Stuart in our NCWS meeting in August.
I would like to formally welcome Miss Ashley. Glad to have her on board. And like to thank Stuart for being with us. Look forward to getting to know you better. And also tell Miss Jamie we always appreciate everything she does. And it goes unsaid, Miss Roxanne, you're the fearless leader, so we always appreciate what you do.
Well, you're sweet. Thank you. And Angela will do your reimbursements after this meeting. She will very likely be at our other meetings. So I will, if there's anything else, we can have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second, and so moved. All righty. Thank you all very much.